When you have a player the caliber of LeBron James, the best player in the sport, you wake up every day thinking you're going to go to the finals. And that's not reality. It was an incredible run. We brought a championship to Northeast Ohio, but that wasn't reality. I think the last 3 years of rebuilding and rolling up your sleeves, replenishing assets, draft picks, that's more of a reality of a NBA general manager. And to be quite honest with you, after that 4-year run, we didn't have a foundation of really anything. We had immense talent during that 4-year run, but when LeBron left, we fell flat on our face as a franchise.
Make your pitch to LeBron James to stay in Cleveland with you.
Man, LeBron, let's do it. Let's do it. I see you need a few pieces, that one extra piece this past season. Hey, let's do it. Let's go back to the finals. Let's do it.
All right, LeBron, the young bull has called you out. He wants you to stay with him in Cleveland. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the latest episode of The Layup.Line. My name is Dolos, and that intro featured a snippet from a podcast with ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski and Cavaliers head of basketball operations Koby Altman. It's what inspired today's video, because what Koby Altman is saying there is so true. The Cavs fell hard on their face after the 2018 season. The fact that they've been able to make this leap, having 2 first-time All-Stars, the likely Rookie of the Year, two-way stud, and a sideline fringe all-star in Colin Sexton, is such amazing team development and management story. I did a similar video detailing the Grizzlies' transition from the grit and grind to this current era, so I felt the need to do something similar for the Cavaliers. I mean, the franchise that hired John Beilein out of college to be a developmental coach, saw him step down after a 14-40 start, with the most memorable thing about his tenure being the story of him calling his players thugs during a film session. He claimed to have said slugs, but it resulted in players hilariously playing the songs Thuggish Ruggish Bone and Thug's Mansion during team workouts. Cavs fans had to deal with some lows before they got to this point of feeling so great about where their current team is. The organization and fan base has been desperate to build an identity outside of LeBron James, and there have been some missteps along the way, but now that we have arrived at the most successful post-James season for the Cavaliers, it's worth a look at the timeline of getting here. The story really starts in the 2017-18 offseason with the Kyrie Irving trade. Kyrie seemingly wanted out, looking for his own team to carry, and possibly seeing the writing on the wall with the LeBron James departure. He made a trade request to Cavs management, and the deal was done that offseason. Irving to Boston for Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, Ante Zizic, and the Brooklyn Nets 2018 draft pick. At the time, the deal was fairly well received. Isaiah was a recent top 5 MVP finisher, and the hope was that he could approximate some of Kyrie's scoring. This should have been the omen that warned us all the deal would blow up in the Cavs' face. But reports came out that they were not fully satisfied with Isaiah Thomas's physical. Thomas sustained a pretty bad hip injury in that year's playoffs, and Cleveland used that to leverage more out of the deal. They would ultimately only get an added second-round pick. This ends up being a pretty poor replacement for Irving, especially since Thomas wouldn't debut until January, and injury and fit clarified that this was a failed experiment. The Cavs pulled off one of the busiest trade deadlines of all time, completely flipping their roster, adding Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance Jr., the trade that famously gave the Lakers cap space to sign LeBron in the summer. They added Rodney Hood, Kyle Korver, and George Hill. What was a very unhappy locker room was at least more held together now. Ultimately, LeBron would leave after the Cavs were swept out of the finals, making Koby Altman's decision not to trade Brooklyn's draft pick in any of those deals pretty smart. The Nets were better that year than people expected when the Kyrie trade was made. What was hoped to be a top 3 pick fell out of the top 5. The Cavs took Colin Sexton with the 8th pick, but the vets on the team like Tristan Thompson were adamant that this was not going to be a rebuild.
still 4-time Eastern Conference champions. So until you take it down from that, teams ain't got much to say. Boston, Philly, they ain't got much to say. Boston had home court game 7, lost. Philly, you guys almost got swept. Toronto, we already know that story. So until someone takes us down, there's not much they can really say.
Instead, the Cavaliers would lose their first 6 games, at which point they decided to part ways with championship-winning head coach Ty Lue. From that point, things kind of become clear that the team would be rebuilding. They made 2 trades before Christmas to swap some of their vets for draft stuff. They were cycling unsigned and G League players in and out, and they made 2 more trades dropping veterans in exchange for future draft assets before the deadline. This was huge for a team that moved most of their own draft assets during their finals pushes. They were mostly getting back second-round picks, which aren't great, but they add up, and good front offices can get the best out of them depending on the draft class. Koby Altman has been aggressive making moves since he got the GM job, never really being satisfied and taking swings to either improve or add assets to improve later on. There are some unsuccessful swings that we will get to, but Cleveland realizing 6 games into the season that they were better off actively tanking resulted in the 5th overall pick in the 2019 draft, where they added Darius Garland. Questions swirled about deciding to start such a small backcourt, but the Sexland nickname was born, and as a result, Garland is now a first-time All-Star, so it's tough to argue with their selections in back-to-back drafts. Notably, they also landed the very gifted Kevin Porter Jr. at the end of the first round in a draft day deal, and Porter was a lottery talent whose draft stock was impacted by some personal reasons more than his play, so this was a good draft night from Cleveland, even if the Kevin Porter experiment wouldn't necessarily work. Darius Garland wasn't all that impactful in his rookie year, which is usual for young guards getting used to running offenses at a professional level. This was also the offseason that the Cavs hired John Beilein to be their head coach, but I've already told you about his most significant contribution to the team that year. Thankfully, current head coach JB Bickerstaff was already on the bench as a lead assistant coach because he's been able to step into the role pretty well, and players seem to actually care about him and respect him. Koby Altman actually revealed on the Watch podcast that the plan was for Beilein to coach a season or 2 and help develop players before JB was planned to take control. Apparently, the constant losing got to John and he wanted to step down much sooner. Probably his best decision as coach. The Cavs also made one of the weirder trades of this era this season when they traded for Andre Drummond. This was a losing season where they already moved Jordan Clarkson for draft picks. They were once again playing many non-NBA or fringe NBA players, but for some reason they decided to make a win-now move like trading for Drummond. On some level I understand it, his trade value was very low and they gave up nothing of consequence to try this experiment, but a head-scratcher given where the team was. As you may remember, the Cavs were part of the Elite 8. The 8 teams with absolutely no shot at making the playoffs when the pandemic ended the NBA season, so they were told to just stay home when the season resumed in Disneyland. Like many others on teams left behind, we heard about the embarrassment and motivation about being left out of the season. This meant another year in the draft lottery where the Cavs selected Isaac Okoro out of Auburn 5th overall. Okoro is an offensive project that's still being molded at the moment, but he's a sturdy defender that you can probably bank on getting even better defensively. He wouldn't go this high if we were to redraft right now, but he still has time and the other picks are working out, and that's given Cleveland a boost. Just not this season. While the Cavs are somewhat famous for their great draft lottery luck, having selected 9 players in the top 5 of the draft since 2003, but in the 2021 season, the Cavs got some different kind of luck. James Harden was requesting a trade from Houston. A theme of Koby Altman's tenure as GM is how active he has been in making moves. In that podcast with Waj, Koby explained one of the reasons that they were able to slither in as the 3rd team in the Harden trade is because of their activity. Altman said that Sean Marks called him because he knew the organization would be able to move quick on a deal, all while being pretty quiet about their involvement. This is where we will give some props to the Cavs ownership as well. They've always been willing to spend to put together a good team, but the owner getting out of the way and letting his GM run the team allows you to move quicker on deals like this, and it's how Jarrett Allen came to find his way onto the Cavaliers. We should commend the Cavs for realizing early this season that the Drummond experiment wasn't working, especially now that they had their young center of the future with Allen. Andre was redundant and on a $20 million expiring deal, and the Cavs had no intention of re-signing him, so in February the team and Drummond agreed it would be best for everyone if he just sat out until they could find a trade. They couldn't find one, and so he was bought out. Really a no harm, no foul situation because they paid such a low price to trade for him, and then they sat him out to help their lottery odds as they once again swapped in and out fringe NBA talent to tank. The NBA would like to think that they've ended tanking by changing the top 4 lottery odds and adding the play-in tournament, and that kind of did, but at the end of the day, your best shot at a top pick is losing the most games. And with only 22 wins in a 72-game season, the Cavs jumped from odds-on 5th to getting the 3rd pick. 7 months removed from the draft, the organization and fan base couldn't be happier with 3rd overall pick Evan Mobley out of USC because he looks capable of multiple all-defense teams paired with a unique offensive skill set for his size. There were already questions of how a front court of Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, 2 7-footers, was going to work in the modern NBA, and things got even more confusing when they added another one in a deal to bring a 3rd 7-footer in Lauri Markkanen. Preseason, the Cavs were projected to be looking at another lottery pick or possibly the play-in for the big optimist. We are now past the All-Star break with the Cavs having a real chance to have home court advantage series in the playoffs already. This is a rare jump, so I felt the need to do a video highlighting the contributions of everyone from players, GMs, coaching, and ownership. While some people are distracted by the question of if LeBron would ever return to the team, the Cavaliers are making a statement about why they might not need him. But that's all I have for you in this one. I did a similar video on the Memphis Grizzlies, so if you haven't seen that one already, check it out. I really want to thank you if you made it to the end of this video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one, and because it helps me grow the page, like the video if you liked the video, and leave me a comment about anything Cavalier themed, or drop ideas for future videos you want to see. Thanks again for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.